Good morning and welcome to episode 16 of the Auto Media Group Weekly Wrap. We're doing well on these numbers. We're doing really well. What's not doing so well is my cough, so I've taken a whole pile of drugs so that we can get through this without spluttering and choking all over the mic. So let's just see how that goes. The joy of having a toddler bringing home bugs from daycare. But there definitely seems to be a nasty wee virus going around Auckland and probably broader New Zealand at the moment. I know a few other people in the industry who are out with it or have families suffering from it. So if you are, then take care. Take care. It's not the most.
Yeah, well, I think it actually is affecting quite a few businesses that we work with too, Richard. It's a lot of the suppliers that I'm dealing with just haven't got staff right now, and it's not necessarily the spicy cough; it's the flu. That or they're not getting tested, one of the two. But yeah, there's quite a few places that are actually battling now with staff shortages in the automotive sector.
Yeah. So of course, we've already started, but my usual friends, you know them, you love them. Graham McDonald, who this week is in the middle, and Matthew Hanson, who this week is
Brought to you by caffeine and wet weather.
hanging out on the right wing. Yeah, caffeine. Well, we were just having the very important debate that, of course, everyone should have on a regular basis, and that's which service station makes the best coffee. Graham, you have an opinion?
Yeah, well, I've just transferred my allegiance over to no brand allegiance there to Mobil. I'm previously a card-carrying member of the Wild Bean Club on delivery runs all over the country, but I have to say I'm switching my allegiance along with the way they switch their beans. And if you're a motor vehicle trader, you know how important coffee is, right? And so, top tip from Graham, I think Mobil's changed their bean mix, and it's worth a second look.
See, I've stepped away from the wild beans lately because they canned the frappe. It's just, Generally, my service station coffee is going straight to the fridge and getting a Boss iced latte. That's always a safe option. What's the saying? Japan can.
You've got to have a curry rice along with that. A cold Boss coffee in summer and a curry rice.
Well, there's a dealer-owned Japanese restaurant in Ellerslie that does a curry rice. So I think we need to go and hit that up at some point.
We should do a roadie there.
Yeah. We don't need coffee on the way. Anyway,
What's the news?
Let's get on with some actual industry news. Well, I mean, the first thing we've got to discuss is LDV has confirmed the price for New Zealand's first fully electric ute. Following a surprise debut earlier this year, LDV has announced the opening price for its fully electric ET60 pickup, the first EV ute confirmed for the New Zealand market. The ET60 will be priced from $79,990, including GST and on-roads. This means the model will be eligible for the government's $8,625 clean car discount rebate. No, it's the clean car. Give up on this naming. Effectively dropping its price to $71,365. Just one model will be offered locally. It pairs an 88 kilowatt hour battery to a 130 kilowatt, 310 newton meter electric motor and rear wheel drive. Range is rated at 325 kilometers and towing at 1,500 kilograms, which is more than the prototype. The original plan was 1,000 k's, but 1,000 kilograms, but 1,500.
It's too expensive.
Is viable. Well, yes.
It's too expensive. For the target market, for where you actually want to be hitting it, which is we're talking about tradies. Yes, the buying sector that will buy an EV no matter what. So those that are either compressed into their buying choices by dint of the contracts they hold in local government, or they just drink from the cup of electric Jesus. But those people are going to buy the ute no matter what. However, if you're trying to look at a target market for tradies and small businesses to switch over their allegiance from the traditional, it's not even Toyota buyers, looking at things like the cheaper end of the market in utes, at 71 grand, even after a rebate, that's too expensive. It's got to be in that. I'd argue in saying that's at a mid-50s territory for it to be a really credible alternative to a cheap new ute.
Well, it's funny you say that number because, look, I just quickly ran back of a crisp packet calculations on the thing. And, of course, and it's weird. It's the first time I've seen LDV seemingly like pitch the price of a vehicle with GST included. They're such a business-focused brand that they generally actually push their prices before GST. You knock GST off and then drop the rebate off that, and that's $59,300. Now, of course, if your local body council buying 30 of the things and you want to chuck another 5% off that, which you might get away with maybe,
I don't care. It's not their money, right?
Yeah. Then
Tick it up.
then you are getting down into that mid-50s kind of driveway zone. It's an interesting one. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there in regards to one of the big buying features of this vehicle, and that is the requirements for councils and other corporates now to have electrified fleets by mandate of what they're doing. You know, I mean, essentially, if you want to go bidding for government construction contracts, you're going to need to have some of these in your fleet in the next couple of years.
That's right.
Although I would suggest that for most of those business contractors, they're better off driving your favourite vehicle in the world, Graham, the E-Deliver 9.
Well, we'll see. I mean, there'll be the early adopters, and like I said, I'm not for a second distant. I'm always a little bit nervous about councils and government spending all my money on, like I say, with vanity projects, because there's definitely benefits, absolute benefits in an EV fleet. But when they're spending my money on that, I'd rather be the person that gets to choose. Again, Graham always had little problems with these things. I know that's why I'm on the show. I'm not too sure, but I do think I have a little bit of a problem with that particular sentiment. What do you think, Matthew?
Well, I don't know about you, Richard, but normally in the current climate of EVs and semiconductors and all that stuff, anytime I see something that rolls out with a price of $79,990, I tend to think they're probably losing money on that vehicle, because it's too perfect, it's too numerically perfect. I think it is too expensive for the moment, but someone has to be first, and he who's first is often going to tread some fairly expensive prices. Once you start thinking about it as a 59 grand offering, I think it sort of improves a little bit. I've seen a few people talking about the towing capacity and the lack of four-wheel drive as being sort of barriers against it, which I think is valid if you're in those. But at the same time, I think a lot of these people who are buying utes on a fleet basis probably don't really need both of those things on a daily basis.
And the proportion of the market for utes that's two-wheel drive, I don't actually have the number in front of me, but it's substantial. It's not the majority of the market, but it's a really substantial number. And I think even if you look at the farm market, for a lot of farmers these days, the ute is not for going out the back of the farm. They've got a UTV, they've got a side-by-side, they've got a quad bike or a motorbike for that, or they run something else there with a trailer. Because the reality is that four-wheel drive utes just can't go that far on a wet paddock.
They can on my farm, except if they're a certain large American ute, Richard.
There's a backstory to that. There's video evidence, but let's not discuss
it wasn't broadcast, right?
Yeah. And of course, but the other thing too is we've got an interesting thing out there. There are other options popping up. Tell us about what Geely have revealed this week, Matthew.
So yeah, Geely's come out with they're teasing a new electric ute this week. First pictures showing it camouflage and all that sort of thing. I remember us talking a few editions ago about Geely looking to hire people in this part of the world for potential relaunch. So it could be something down the line that ends up popping up here, but it's a very different style of ute offering. Just looking at it visually, they haven't released specs of the vehicle, but looking at pictures, it looks a lot more like a light kind of vehicle. It doesn't have very much ground clearance. It seems almost a little like the Hyundai, the Santa Cruz that they offer in America, which is sort of a front wheel drive specific pickup. It has a bed, but it is a bit smaller than sort of the traditional double cab fare we have here. But I've always thought, well, it's a matter of time before someone releases one of those smaller pickups in New Zealand, and it may as well be an EV. That's probably one way that we could start seeing EV pickups here at a price that's a bit more affordable.
That small pickup market is obviously it's massive in South America and some other parts of the world. In America, it's a really big growing part of the market. You've got Ford in there now with the Maverick. You've got the Hyundai with the Santa Cruz. There's other brands coming into that segment over there. And I think it's a good option because, we do have this, you got this argument, a whole big chunk of the ute market is just people in the city who want to look cool. Well, let's develop a ute for those people, that makes a lot of sense to me. The interesting thing with that car is it's basically a Polestar underneath. It's that Geely Volvo electric platform. which is a pretty well-proven platform. So it'd be interesting to see if that makes it here. But yeah, for the ute buyer who still just wants it to take the kids to school and chuck some mountain bikes back on the weekend and pull a medium-sized trailer when they go off camping in the summer, which I think covers off about 90% of your use, Graham, then something like that, who says you need a separate chassis behemoth as far as I'm concerned?
It's like a renaissance, actually. And you think about back to the 70s, like in America particularly, in the mini truck, into the whole mini truck scene, it's like fashion, isn't it? We go round and round in circles. You think about the old days of the Chevy C10, the Chevy Love, the little Ford Ranger and things they had, like the early Ford Rangers. And there was a huge following from America. And then, like certain members of our panel here, we get old and fat. And suddenly we just sort of forget what the small stuff looked like. It's like we're going to go back again to the smaller size to gradually grow it back up again. And I think there's actually quite a good market there for the small little mini truck that's been left behind for quite some time.
I don't think they're even necessarily that small. I mean, obviously you've got huge packaging advantages with a unibody kind of structure. And my understanding is the interior space in a Maverick is not that much different to the interior space in a Ranger at all. And I don't think that even the tray is that drastically different. In fact, I think the Maverick one is somewhat better designed because you have those non-compromises as far as packaging goes when you take a giant steel chassis out of it. Anyway, Let's moving on. Clean car rebates confused following Mazda Excella switch. The government's clean car discount scheme continues to create problems for used car dealers following more complaints about cars initially being eligible for the rebate now being slapped with a fee. The latest model linked to the phenomena is Mazda Excellas fitted with a 1.6-litre engine, with one dealer claiming the popular compact has gone from being eligible for a rebate of approximately $470 to a fee of $500. The claims come via the director of Cars Value Warehouse, Peter Cullen. The Christchurch dealer made the surprise discovery while printing off economy labels for newly arrived Mazda Excella stocks. Can you expand on this, Matthew? You've spoken to Peter, I believe. He must be pretty annoyed with all this.
Yeah, he is. He has. I had a chat to him earlier this week, as did RNZ. This was a story that actually went pretty big. A lot of people covered it, which, to the eye, I imagine, of those who, are behind the scheme. He has, I think, a stock of about 10 Mazdas, and simply now doesn't really know what to do with them, how to advertise them. Doesn't know how often he should be reprinting labels. And he talked about a few other foibles that he's discovered with other cars on his lot that have, I guess, questionable numbers that come out of them in terms of rebate versus fee. I also had a chat to David Vinson about it, and he sort of elaborated further and talked about what's being done behind the scenes and the sorts of things that he wants to see. Some of which I'm sure we'll probably discuss in the next news item. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Well, I guess, look, we have seen this push, this recommendation that people reprint their labels, I think, in the last week or so. Graham, have you found any differences when you guys have gone to print the labels for your yard, or is printing one label?
First step.
One label for Aquas and photocopying it?
Yeah, exactly. No, there's not. There's 5 or 6 different bands for Aquas as well, and it's really random. There's no within reason, but there's a whole lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense there too. There's 3 points to this. One, the scheme should never have been implemented when it was. All the advice from the industry, and I'm passionate about this, as you can tell, all the advice from the industry at the time to the officials and to the minister was delay the scheme. The system is not ready, not even close. But they wanted to push ahead anyway. The minister wanted to push the button, and here we are now. So to an extent, all the complaining we're having about things not working, and things aren't working, I sort of feel sorry for the officials because they've been put in a position of hopelessness with a system that doesn't work, that's not fit for purpose. And yes, they're trying to patch up things as they go, but the faster they patch things up, there are more holes. I mean, for example, we found this week that a certain very popular late model commercial vehicle that we had been told would be subject to a fee, and I had printed out, and we'd pre-purchased units on the basis of attracting a fee post April the 1st. We've discovered now to reprint the labels suddenly are neutral. We've got 2 examples of the Subaru BRZ, for example. One has a fee of $860 odd. One has a fee of $500. The cars are identical. Things like this. I mean, Peter's a good operator. Peter Cullen and Martin, they're good operators. One of the grating parts about this is the ministry or NZTA expect us as dealers just to wander around a yard of 120 cars and just reprint labels willy-nilly. I mean, okay, well, for a start, please pay my printer bill. Secondly, please pay for my time to go and deal with it. That's a couple of days worth of work. But what really is the issue about all of this that no one's talking about is that the system's not right now and there are that many glaring gaps. What's it going to look like for the clean car standard? It's a dog. I've said it before, it's a dog.
And we'll cut to some, I guess, the Beltway stuff here. I mean, I feel for the NZTA officials because they got thrown a very hot potato at a very late state of the process. You know, they couldn't really start writing this until they had the regulation in place. And if you read the AutoTalk magazine coming out Monday morning, we've got more material there, particularly if you read David Crawford's column about, you know, a lot of the work coming out of that emissions team at the moment at the Ministry of Transport is not based on best industry practice or experience or even intelligent ideology. It's very singularly focused on achieving a goal, which is basically the elimination of petrol vehicles. And sure, that may be something we need to look at, but it's not necessarily, but you need to do things in a way that is actually viable and allows the industry to do the work to get there in the piece. It's a bit nonsensical.
Can I just make a little point here? And this is a bit political, I know, but has anyone asked the public if they want this at this level?
I guess.
I mean, seriously.
Does everything the government do have to be liked by the public, or?
Well, clearly not this lot, one would say. But again, I don't want to be political about it. But you know, this single-minded drive towards the elimination of the petrol vehicle as fast as they possibly can. I'd argue if you put that to most people in the street run, they look like you've got three eyes. Yeah, very, very quickly, this has developed into ideology that is not backed up by the systems to implement it, and that's a problem.
And there's more to come. I mean, we know where we've got the government pushing to go to stages of you know, the Euro emission standards and so forth in New Zealand, which just aren't possible to do, and they don't seem to be listening to. You know, the industry essentially on both the used and the new side funds some very intelligent people with a lot of experience in this stuff to work with them, communicate with them, and help them understand the realities of the industry. The ministry just doesn't seem to be listening, and that's a sad thing. And it's sad because, you know, up until a couple of years back, we had a really great collaborative relationship, I think, between the industry and the government bodies, and that helped us generally push in the right direction. And sure, there was niggle, and you know, a rule would come through, and the industry would whinge, and you'd make a few degrees of change here and there. We're going a bit clean, you know, clean sheet at the moment on some of these things, and it's scary, and it's causing pain. So I mean, what if we cut back to our list of stuff? You know, David Vincent from VIA has suggested that the standard needs to be put back. Just until it's fit for purpose. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether that gets across the line even now, because the work's still not finished on that, and people have another 3 months before they have to be basically registered and underway with this. I think it's December 1. I think they've got to have their systems up and running, and that's not long in the scheme of things.
I'll predict right now massive chaos.
And maybe, hey, look, it's probably going to create some jobs, because I suspect most car companies are going to need at least one or two people looking after their standard obligations, and that's one way of creating jobs, I guess.
Goody, more costs.
Now, of course, we have the market stats coming out this week, and it's not great on both sides of the ledger. The new markets weakened as the cost of living rises. The Motor Industry Association Principal Technical Advisor Mark Stockdale, hello Mark if you're watching, says sales of new vehicle market are struggling amid June's low registration. How do we write that? That doesn't work. Anyway, the month was down. To quote Mark, says the market is weakening in the face of rising costs of living, high fuel prices, continued vehicle supply constraints, and a weakening New Zealand economy. 12,000 new vehicles registered in June That's a 20% drop year on year. The majority of that drop comes from the commercial vehicle sector, which fell 48.5% year on year. Mitsubishi Outlander led the Toyota Hilux, Kia Sportage, Mitsubishi ASX, and Toyota RAV4 for the month. Arrivals were down 21,000 vehicles in June 2022 versus 29,900 in June 2021. And the used vehicle market was also down year on year, but up against May. So it's, I think you can talk all you want about the cost of living, all this kind of stuff, but people are just scared and don't want to spend money at the moment. Is that fair, Graham?
I didn't hear that. Sorry, Richard.
People are just scared and don't want to spend money at the moment.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We've seen a definite slowdown in buyer activity. But don't forget, this is June. And I tell everyone that I ever speak to, if I plot the 20, I don't know, is it 27 or 28 years I've been doing this in the industry, the worst month of the year consistently is June. It is. It's the start of winter. It's great. It's cold. It's miserable. It's not summer anymore. It's not nice where everyone hibernates for a wee bit. They've spent all their tax rebates. There's no more GST refunds coming on through. So June's always a bit of a sucky month anyway, I think. But this one seems to be a little bit worse because you've got there's a real cooling off in the economy out there. And finance, we've still got massive constraints around finance that hasn't been resolved yet. And there's also constraint in supply of stock, both new and used. And you raised an interesting point around new sales and new registrations. And once again, can we plot and chart new vehicle sales versus new registrations? Because, for example, if you're a Toyota dealer right now, what constitutes a sale? Is it when you take the order for the vehicle, or is when you deliver it in 12 months' time? And so we're talking purely registrations and bits and pieces. I think right now, a lot of that is down to the fact there's just a significant shortage of stock coming in on the ground to sell. But if you look at the sales numbers of some of the new vehicle franchises, the sales themselves might actually still be moderately or healthier than they look, but they're not actually reflected in registrations. And the used trade, we're seeing that to an extent. We're getting more and more customers coming to us because we do specialize in later model hybrids, for example. So we're seeing more customers coming to us that just don't want to wait 12 months for a new hybrid. Or they can't wait for whatever reason, and they're accepting the need to buy a used vehicle in the meantime to get them through, so to speak, until such time as the new arrives, all making a different purchasing decision.
I think there's a couple of sides to that. I think from what I'm hearing in the field, the supply stuff is easing up, and in fact, there's actually some brands now which have enough, which means at the stage almost end up with too much. But certainly, there is still a shortage in the stuff that people want, and certainly an electrified product. I think there's an element of in the fleet market. A lot of fleets now are pushing very hard electric and are waiting for that stock as well. But if you go back to the discussion around the new vehicle market and the fact that they've sold the stuff and they're waiting for it, it's still the same problem because it's still money that's not coming in the door. And I remember when we started seeing some of these shortages, start of COVID and so forth. One of the discussions we had was around dealers having to change their remuneration packages for their sales staff.
Yeah, I've heard that, yes.
But until the car is delivered, there's no commission check. And that's a tricky and stressful thing for the trade. And potentially, this could be a period where we see some real cash flow struggle for some dealerships. I don't necessarily we'll see any fall over in the news side. We might see some acquisitions or so forth. It'd be interesting to see how it overall plays out across the trade. Do you think we'll get a bump when we see some of the finance restrictions lift in the next month or so, Graham?
It might help. But I think the finance side of thing is obviously dependent on the economy as well. They're the two riders for the used trade. So we sort of need to see some tweaks coming out of the economy in terms of some better news before we see a flood of people back to finance. It'll help a little bit. And it depends on how much you base your dealership profitability on finance versus the product. And if you're heavily finance based, then sure, any help at all is going to be good. But it's not a big string to your bow. Then you might argue and say that maybe a couple of extra sales across the front door, but it's not going to make a significant difference to what is really a cooling in buyer sentiment.
Let's move on to the last story of the day. ANZ have announced a scheme where they will lend you money for sustainability or electrified products for your home, but also that can extend to a car. If you want an EV on the house, a new ANZ Good Energy Home Loan means people can apply to get an EV or hybrid, a home charger, and do more to make their home more energy efficient. Customers can add it to the ANZ Home Loan at a fixed rate for 3 years, up to $80,000, to make the home more energy efficient and better for the environment. The loan is available to existing ANZ Home Loan customers or those transferring their home loan to the bank, and I'm guessing that there's some fairly tight requirements on that too. We've seen a few specials around the place in regards to electric vehicles. Westpac's been offering them. UDC was running a promotion for a very long time. A few of the other finance companies have been too. I guess why are they doing this? What's the buy-in for these guys? It's surely they can lend enough money on houses without having to throw some more cheap money into the market.
Marketing.
True. You're not going to go and run in and grab a loan to buy a $79,990 ET 60 gram at 1%?
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, I've already got a truck, so, no. And I think, aside from the marketing aspect, it actually is quite a good idea. And look, a lot of the larger corporates, and ANZ used to put into one of the larger corporates in New Zealand, a lot of what they do is around, obviously, marketing. It's about a sense of corporate responsibility and being seen to be that good corporate citizen. And this sort of neatly dovetails in where the risk for ANZ is minimal to nil. The feel-good factor from a marketing perspective and from a corporate sustainability perspective is good. It's a bit of a win-win, and I actually think it's a good idea. If ANZ wish to go down that particular path and they've done the risk assessment of it, then have at it. Absolutely.
Matthew, you're in the market for a home loan at the moment. Would something like this attract you, where you can go and buy your house and then slap some solar on the roof? We have lost Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew, you're
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Boy, we can,
Okay.
yeah.
Did someone not charge their microphone?
No, someone did not. I think we are looking at a home at the moment, and we've in our endeavours in the recent past found that there's barely anyone else doing the same in the area in terms of home open homes and things. The turnouts seem to be really down at the moment. We're sort of always they're typically exclusive where we're the only people looking. I sided a little bit with Graham in a way that it probably is just a bit of a marketing thing that comes at a time when they're fielding less people coming through the door. But I think it is a good idea. I think we're going to see more of that sort of thing in the future as well.
Yeah. I'm going to try a feature that's been around for a while but haven't used on our streaming software. We've got a comment. I'm going to try and... There you go. Matt Buckle, ANZ, creating client stickiness. That is true. Hopefully they're not attempting to steal customers is, I guess, the point. One of the big competitions for car dealers on F&O profit is the old bank loan, or the chucking it on the mortgage, sticking it on the house. So, hopefully that's not more of an attempt from there. Because interestingly, of course, ANZ left the vehicle finance market about a year and a half, 2 years ago, with the sale of UDC. So, that's... big one. Right, I think that's us for today. We can wrap it up. Matthew, how have you enjoyed the last 3 days driving a Porsche Taycan GTS?
It's been pretty good. I've scraped it on minimal things. Hard to follow up the Corvette, of course, which was... I'm sure...
Matthew's the biggest winner from me being sick. He's got to drive the Corvette, and he's got to drive the Taycan.
I'm sure that I'll get some sort of come up at some point, maybe some nice commercial vans or something down the line.
I think it's me getting the comeuppance. I'm returning to active duty on Monday, and the first thing I'm driving is a JAC N55 electric truck. So that's
okay.
Well, that's a bad thing, but it's certainly not Porsche Taycan GTS.
Well, I'll bring you two down to reality. I'm about to go, and after this show is finished, I'm going to hop into a Holden Barina Spark, which is pretty much, and I'm sorry, Holden, which is pretty much the epitome of automotive nastiness.
Now, is it? Well, hang on. Is it the Barina Spark or the Spark?
I don't care, Richard. Honestly, it's just
no.
awful. I don't dare look at the badges.
Because the Barina Spark, nasty. The Holden Spark, nice.
Okay,
there is a difference.
So this is definitely a Barina Spark then, because
okay.
this is just, this is poo on a stick.
Yeah, because the original Spark was pretty bad, but the second generation Spark was kind of interesting. It was one of the last kind of pure little basic, and you can get it in manual hatchbacks. In fact, a friend of the show, Edward Finn, former Holden PR, he drives one of those, a manual Spark, in his day-to-day life, and it's just one of those simple manual go-karty cars. You enjoy your Holden Spark.
I'll take one for the team, you guys. You enjoy your Corvette and your Porsche Taycan and your electric truck. You know, you go, you guys. I'll take one for the team.
I'm driving a Suzuki Jimny, thank you, at the moment. Yeah, that's a example of automotive history, I guess. It does feel that way. And yes, Matt, thanks for reminding us, and we'll give you a little plug there. The E-Road Fleet Day is coming up, and that JAC electric truck is going to be at Fleet Day, the actual very one that I'm driving. So, yes, all good. Right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for catching up again, and we will be back next week. Matthew will look about 5 years younger, having taken a wee holiday. I will look older, but hopefully not sound too croaky. And Graham, I just don't know.
Well, I'll be in Dunedin. We'll be broadcasting live from Dunedin.
This is true. And then I'll be broadcasting live from Dunedin on the next one. So, yeah, see how we go. Anyway,
all right.
We'll catch you.
Happy weekend, everyone. Stay dry.